Well, I think I'll make a start. Bore da, or I should say good afternoon, really. Good afternoon to you. My name is Guto Carrad. I work for Business Wales, and I'm a business advisor specialising in tendering, so helping small and medium-sized companies, startups, growth companies to develop a strategy towards getting tender ready. If they need support with going for tenders, I can't write the tenders for you as much as I'd like to, but through the Business Wales service, we provide that information, knowledge with regards to how to get your company into a position to be sort of tender ready, engaging with buyers, developing relationships. We touch on things like collaboration, so getting small companies to start thinking about joining forces to go for tenders. I've been doing this kind of work for the last over 15 years on various projects with Welsh Government, and before that I was in business management with local authorities and with the NHS. So in the time we've got, I wanted to cover off a couple of things, helping you to understand the tendering procedure. Local authorities, public sector contracts and so on require you to respond in a certain way, and there are different procedures to follow. Online procurement platforms, they are essential these days with regards to how you find information and how you engage with buying organisations to identify opportunities. Then the whole process of becoming tender ready. This does scare people with a level of detail that you have to go into with regards to track record, accreditations, qualifications, etc. But with advice and guidance, we try and get clients to the point of being sort of ready and be able to realistically look at a tender brief and respond with confidence. Look then at how to complete quality tender responses and looking at sort of accreditations and standards that buying organisations are looking for. So the tendering process, Sell to Wales is the main platform. I'm not sure, have people registered on Sell to Wales? Making sure that you've got your profiles up to date as often as you can. All those important common procurement vocabulary codes helps you, the commodity codes then help you to identify those opportunities that match your profile, and making sure that you're updating your profile regularly. A lot of clients I work with are moaning to me that they're not receiving up-to-date information. Have you reviewed your profile recently? No, they hadn't. So if you just regularly update the content about your company, there's a company description there on your profile. Make sure that is as up to date as possible. And then that puts you in the position to either be invited to a quick quote. So a quick quote is a sort of RFQ system, and a lot of buying organisations in the public sector now are going out quickly on a smaller value opportunity, say up to £50,000 worth of work. Then as long as you're registered on Sell to Wales and you're in the right categories, then the buying organisation can pull off a short list of suppliers to invite privately to a quick quote. So that's a really good way of you identifying the smaller opportunities. And of course then Sell to Wales really is your electronic business card. By being on that this platform, you've got a shop window to all of the public sector and private sector opportunities that are being won. You know, principal contractors are winning large contracts. They in turn then are placing developing project pages on Sell to Wales, and from there you can get the contacts for opportunities. So that's a really good way of using the site as a development tool to identify supply chain opportunities. If you're a small company, I always encourage the smaller companies to network. Getting to know the buying organisations, I think, is crucial. In my experience, successful clients have come to me. If it wasn't you helping us to be introduced to a particular buyer, we wouldn't have identified opportunities, and that has led to then developing a relationship and so on. And then the other side, you know, if you are just looking for specific tenders, then this platform will provide you with a regular feed of opportunities, pan Wales, whichever geographical area you're looking to work in, then this site will make sure that you get to know about everything. I mentioned portals. Sell to Wales is the main shop window where you can promote yourself, where you can see opportunities. eTender Wales, Jagger now are running the platform, is where the buying organisations place their documentation for you to go through the tendering exercise. And this is where all the detail will be included. So from the instructions to the specification documents and everything, and all corresponding will all happen through this portal then during the tender response period. So you're asking questions to get clarification on some issues. It's all done through a message board. So this is another way of you register for free on eTender, and that gives you a platform then to be able to view pre-qualification question stages and ITT stages of the tendering process. So when people are preparing for possible tendering opportunities, buying organisations will divide up the process into three main response envelopes. So the pre-qualification stage, that is where they'll be asking you questions based around your current information about the business, and tends to be backward-looking information, standard compliance, and so on. And the aim of the pre-qualification stage is to pass it, quite easily. There's lots of questions there based around procurement policy and so on, and procedures, and there's a lot of it is self-certifying that you have got everything that's required. And what the buyer is trying to do at the PQQ stage is mitigating risk and assessing you as a potential supplier. So if you pass the PQQ, then you're invited to the technical envelope and responding then to that methodology. Moving on to the technical envelope, this is where it's all based on how you're going to be delivering the contract. So a lot of work you can be doing here is collecting information about previous examples of contracts that you've previously delivered, a detailed breakdown of the team that you are, the people. I always encourage small companies I work with to develop commercial CVs, for example. So you're making sure that you've got a good breakdown of the experience of each member of the team that will be working, and then clear process of how your methodology will work, quality control, and so on. So I'll cover that in a few moments. And then with the commercial offering, with a public sector contract these days, it's all in the commercial envelope. It's basically a spreadsheet that the buyer has developed and designed, and then you're asked then to input your pricing strategy. So those are the three main response envelopes when it comes to the process. A few years ago, the Welsh Government worked on developing what they've called the SQUID, the Supplier Qualification Information Database. And that's a standard set of questions that all buying organisations across Wales would use at pre-qualification stage, based around these bullets. So supplier accessibility, financial standing, quality management, capacity and capability, quality, equal opportunities, health and safety, and sustainability. So that's a really good slide that I work with companies to help to get you to the point of being tender ready, of getting everything in place. Planning is crucial with regards to preparing your business for tendering and making sure that you're compliant, and process and demonstration of process is essential to make sure that you're successful with your bid submissions. So this is a really good place for you to start, and I think that the slide deck is going to be shared, and this can be a sort of a pointer that you can use if you're at that stage of getting your company to the point of being tender ready. Within procurement documentation that you receive, everything is there for you when you log on to these electronic platforms. Everything from in the most important document that when I work with companies on tenders is looking at the instruction document, and that's where all of those key dates are detailed, ranging from when tenders are going to be advertised, cut-off dates for asking questions and so on. If TUPE is going to be an implication, then the buyer has a requirement to provide you with information to assist you with compiling your tender response, and then right through to the notification, standstill period, and right through the contract commencement. So that's a really good way of you then putting those key dates in your plan to know then when the tender is going to be awarded and so on, and planning your time effectively. So a lot of companies that I work with don't realise how much time there's involved in preparing a tender, gathering information to when the tender goes live and you start with the response. A lot of the qualification questions are fairly standard and you should be able to get through them fairly easily, but when it comes to more the technical questions, it can be quite difficult to work within the word counts and getting your key messages across. But there's a lot of things that you can be doing in advance to sort of get yourself to the point of being ready. A lot of all the tenders will require you to demonstrate references, testimonials. If you're collecting those on a regular basis, then that will help. And if you can develop case studies, I've seen lots of successful bids have developed a short case study on a successful recent contract, which has really highlighted things that went well, things that didn't go so well, how you contract managed and worked with other stakeholders and so on, and how your communication channels worked. And that really gives a buyer some really good idea of how you operate.
Can I just ask that?
Yeah.
As part of Business World, how much do you help an organisation actually create these things?
Yeah, so practically we've got templates. So we've got a range of I'm a tendering advisor. I work closely with a HR advisor. We have a sustainability advisor as part of the delivery team, and a more general business advisor. So if you're coming in at, say, for example, you're a startup business, there'll be a startup advisor who can take you through that journey. If you're growing, need to develop your business plan. A lot of tenders these days for small companies. I was working with a company yesterday and they were a startup and they were a bit concerned about whether they would qualify to get through. Buying organisations will accommodate startup companies as long as you're able to demonstrate, and demonstrate your startup finances. They might want to see a business plan. So in that case, I would be referring that client to one of our general business advisors for help with developing your business plan and so on to use as evidence. But when I'm working with on a day-to-day basis with companies, I've got template documents on lots of these requirements, and showing examples to small companies on what's required, what the standards are, and so on. Does that answer your question?
Does, yeah.
Yeah. With regards to accreditations, a lot of the buyers these days do ask, if you've got ISO standards, UCAS accredited quality management systems, environmental management systems, and so on. Not every small company has got the capacity to put that in place straight away, but a lot of buying organisations that I work with, they are quite keen to reach out to local companies. And if you're showing a commitment towards putting standards in place, sort of quality management, environmental management, and so on, then there are alternatives. Instead of spending thousands of pounds on ISO accreditations at the very beginning, then you can work towards. There are other alternatives there that you can be using, which are maybe a little bit more appropriate for the size of business you are, the type of contracts that you're likely to be going for. So things like quality management, SKUMAS, Picasso. There are other quality management systems out there which cost hundreds of pounds rather than thousands of pounds to be able to put in place. And if you then, if it's going to be a long-term plan, you can look to develop and work towards maybe putting those appropriate or the ISO accreditations in place. Organisational charts, staff training, and sort of gathering accounts and so on, all standard information that you can be preparing in advance. Obviously insurances, there'll be employment and public liability insurances, policies and procedures. As I mentioned, we've got templates that we help companies to develop their own policies. In some cases with a very small business, it is literally giving a company a policy that's been written internally by Business Wales as templates, and then you just need to literally put your name in, and you can adopt that then as a policy for your business. And any management information, for example, if you are measuring your performance based on on KPIs and so on, then that will help to evidence tenders. Corporate social responsibility, that's a large part of tender responses these days within the public sector. So you have social value is a really big, it's about 10% of the marks within the tendering exercise today. So if you're able to demonstrate strategies or things that you're proactively doing within your local community based on CSR, then that really does help when it comes to planning the tender. And in tenders these days, there will be a requirement to show a commitment towards contributing to social value, community benefit. What are you able to give back to the community, and develop a method statement which will be part of your tender submission. Not always marked in the tender, but if you were successful, would then be part of the contract that you have with that particular buying organisation. And then getting ready, environmental awareness. A lot of the buying organisations today want to see your environmental policy, your procedures, and sort of KPIs that you're setting yourselves internally. And we in Business Wales have got specialists that literally, I work with a sustainability advisor across Mid and West Wales, and we work closely in helping companies then to develop the appropriate responses to evidence tenders and to show how you're measuring your environmental impact and what plans you're putting in place for the future. When I look at tenders with companies, I really try and help you to focus and evaluate bids carefully. Buying organisations will always ask questions based around your capacity and your capability. Are you able to meet the requirement of that specification? And in some cases, consider your organisational sort of aims and objectives and how the contract will align with these objectives. Doing that research is really important these days to make sure that you are focusing on the right areas. The buyer can see the understanding that you have within the industry, and how you you propose to deliver innovative ways of delivering contracts as well these days, but research and getting to know the buyer that you're trying to target is really important. And that's one of the things that I do regularly, is broker relationships with those buying organisations. So I've got my contacts tend to be the procurement departments, but by speaking to those people, they can make then those internal introductions for you to various departments and so on. And I think that networking was mentioned earlier this morning is crucial, and sort of getting to know those buying organisations will really put you in a better position to be successful. They want to work with smaller companies as buyers. They want to get to know you as well as possible, and then to give you an opportunity to bid for work. Evaluate carefully the tenders that are worth bidding for, and that's something I do go through regularly, is looking at the detail of that delivery, what it could potentially mean for you. For example, you might be bidding to get onto a framework contract. Evaluating, there's no guarantee of work when you're on the framework, and so on. So it's really evaluating what that contract could mean for you potentially, and if it's worth investing the time in going for it in the first place. Tips for PQQs. When you're preparing basic information and going through that pre-qualification stage, it's all about mitigating risk. So buyers do ask those risk questions, and being able to answer those questions confidently, and to build that sort of trust up with the buying organisation. Examples, of pre-qualification questions. They will always be asking you to provide evidence of contracts that you've previously delivered. And this is an example lifted from a PQQ question. And literally, my tip always is to follow the bullet points and as headings, and provide the information, as much detailed information as you can on the goods, how the contract is relevant, value of contracts, etc., contract dates. They all give the buyer valuable information to understand how you've delivered and who you've delivered contracts for. So these are sort of examples that you can be writing up in advance. I always encourage people to create references and examples, of contracts that you've worked on previously, and case studies especially. Those will really show the types of organisations you have worked for in the past, and the detail of how you've delivered. So the ITT is always the forward-looking document in the bidding process. A number of questions in relation to contract delivery. So methodology is going to be one of the strong main questions, and you'll usually get a series of detailed questions asking how you're going to contract management, what your team is going to look like, how are you going to manage quality through all stages of that project. If you're bringing in subcontractors or specialists, how does that relationship work? Have you set up an understanding? Have you gone through maybe a process of vetting those suppliers before you're using them? And how does that sort of relationship work with subcontractors? So there'll be questions in the tender that will look at the relationship you have and how you manage that relationship. And then outline main risks associated with the contract and mitigating those factors. So again, this is your chance to look through the specification, recognise those risks, and then put in sort of a response there, so that the buyer then, when they're assessing your bid, can see that you have identified those risks and you have put those measures in place to accommodate that risk. Has anybody got any questions on what I'm going through? I don't want it to be me at the front as a school teacher. Yes, I can certainly make this available. And for your information, I run webinars at the moment, 3 of them. I have done for the last 2 or 3 years. One is all about Sell to Wales, so it's helping companies who are not familiar with using the platform and showing you what a good profile looks like, what you need to include, and how to use the website proactively, use it as a development tool, networking, finding suppliers maybe to collaborate with, and so on. Module 2 is a little bit more about the process. So it's looking at the PQQ, the ITT stage, what buyers are looking for, and how to prepare your organisation for tenders, and building relationships up with those buying organisations. And then module 3 that I run is more advanced bid writing. You've learnt the tools of the process, how to approach a tender. Then module 3 is all about the advanced bid writing, adding value, looking at the social value sort of questions in the tender, and developing your in-house template and your approach. Those.
It's really positive that there is, lots of the points that you've covered. I'm not sure, from a small business point of view, as local authorities, as government, are we doing enough to support and really handhold the small businesses? I manage one of the Swansea Bay City Lead projects. One of our ambitions is to create jobs.
Okay.
The majority of the companies within our region are small, medium enterprises. And it is really daunting for some of those companies to take that first step. And I'm not sure really that we've got it quite right, if I'm honest.
Okay.
I see contracts going out from local authorities. I think the whole process of being able to even contemplate putting in a submission, particularly for the one-man bands, it's a really time.
I think the online processes these days is really frightening people.
Looking at to somebody who's starting off in a new job, to put on paper, there isn't really a lot of experience that they've got, and sometimes somebody just needs that hand holding to get them over that line, to make that big break. I'm not quite sure whether we've got that bit right.
Okay.
I suppose I'm thinking of it, friends, family who've got small businesses that wouldn't entertain putting in for some of the contracts.
Okay. One of the key messages that I try and get across to companies that I work with on a daily basis is the value thresholds that local authorities, public sector work by, and try and make sure that those companies are pitching themselves at the right level. Anything, I'm generalising here, but anything from 0, say, to £5,000 worth of work, then a buying organisation just needs to go out to the marketplace. They can place an order, a purchase order with a local company, and there's not a complicated process to have to go through. Anything from, say, 5 to 25 and maybe slightly more, up to 50,000, it's a request for quotation. So that then, for the smaller company, it's not such an arduous process, but you literally do have to say, put on paper how you're going to present your company, how you're going to deliver, etc. And then anything above that, then from the 25 or 50,000 and above, then everything's going to be advertised and going through a procurement process, advertising on Sell to Wales and so on. So I am trying to continuously help the smaller companies to understand the different value thresholds and where they could be sort of pitching themselves. And also, I think is really important for those smaller companies to have conversations with those buyers and say, look, we're a local company, we're on the doorstep in the area. We have the skills, we have the ability to be able to deliver, but, and then making sure that they are pitching themselves at the right level, building the relationships, and then the buying organisations try and provide as much information as possible introduce you to those key people so you can have those conversations to know where the opportunities are. And my role then is to sort of, I've done a lot recently of very small RFQs, so just providing a template for that company and working through a very simple process of how to present your company. You know, writing a simple company profile that says what you do and so on. And then what I try and do is make sure that I'm providing a framework for that company, a simple template document that you can use to then submit sort of regular small quotes. And if you're going for the larger frameworks, that's probably miles away from a lot of SMEs. But as well as that, building the relationships as well with some of the larger framework contractors. So say, for example, on Celta Wales, a small company can track and see who's actually won a contract on a framework, and there might be a list of 3 or 4 contractors in the area that have been appointed. Their contact details will be there. What's to stop you as a small business approaching some of those larger contractors and see if there are any subcontracting opportunities? I've seen success stories that way, where a lot of companies I've supported, I'm not interested in anything else, Kitto and Celta Wales. That's all we do, is we track the award notices that are published by the buyers on Cell2, and they will approach those contractors to find out if they can secure smaller value opportunities.
I suppose you see a lot more meet the buyer events, which is positive.
Yes, so a lot as part of the contracting process these days. The larger principal contractors winning the contracts need to be running meet the buyer style events, and then giving a chance for local companies to engage and find out if there are supply chain opportunities. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Gitto. Just on a similar vein to what's just been raised. So I represent Carmarthenshire County Council, and as part of our economic recovery, we've got a commitment that we're going to increase our local procurement spend.
Yeah.
So again, SMEs, small businesses, etc. So we're working closely with procurement colleagues, and part of the work I'm tasked with is how can we do things differently, better, easier. So I'd be really interested to understand from your perspective what businesses are saying that are the barriers. So the Meet the Buyer events, for example, our business engagement team is liaising with procurement and the departments. What's our forward work plan of procurement, where we know? What are our business sectors existing, or who could diversify, or could work cooperatively, and but getting them to engage. And I think it's partly what you've raised, that they've either been through the process before, they're daunted by it, or they've got on a framework, they've never had any business because it's called off the top
framework,
rather than so I'm really keen, not to take too much time, but if you've got real life experience, because we're taking a report back to our cabinet saying, from my perspective, regeneration, economic development, this within the regs, or what's our appetite for risk, because there's 2 things there, aren't there? This is what we could do, and this is what it might mean for local businesses. But I don't know, that's maybe outside we can pick up Gits or your experiences.
Sorry,
Yeah.
just going back on that, because I was Carmarthenshire County Council a long time ago, but exactly the same. I used to work with them to be able to write the applications, give them that knowledge of how to be successful, and really to get all out and stuff at the time. And we had officers that would support across Carmarthenshire. So again, like in the local authority, there were business or development officers that would support them with that journey through, because that's what they were saying, is the knowledge and understanding what to put, what content we're putting here, what's going to make it the top class that's going to get them the technical. They knew they don't know what to put in, it's going to be that successful. So I'd go back to the cabinet and say, can we have some of that team back?
I mean, we've got that team, and we have put it back, and that's part of what we've done as the COVID. But it's also, I get the point you're saying, Gitto, in terms of contact the main contractors.
Yeah.
But that comes back to the discussion earlier about the linear approach.
Yeah.
What we've or what we're understanding from the smaller businesses, is they just get squeezed on the price. The main contractor takes their 10, 12% overhead profit, and they're making it so unworkable for the subcontractors because the margins are squeezed. So if we delotted it and then we gave smaller packages, we were better, because let's be honest, I can only speak for Carmarthenshire, but we're poor at contract management. So it's easy for us to give it to a main contractor. They worry about it, we de-risk it, but it's not helping the smaller businesses. So those are the sorts of things I'm really keen to...
I have a successful relationship with Carmarthenshire County Council's procurement team. I speak to them regularly, and the feedback I'm getting is simplify the process. Okay, for the smaller value contracts. From the clients I'm speaking to, they're going for an opportunity. They just want why are you asking for such detailed policy, procedure, and so on? Yeah, for the larger SMEs, fine, they have got that structure in place. But for me, under 5 employees, 1, 2-man bands, you know, have you got a health and safety policy? What's your environmental policy look like? There's a lot of stuff, you know, which is good for development of your company. But please, 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 and I've heard this so many times, simplify the process. You know, up to a certain threshold value of contract value, then can the process be simpler? But then my procurement colleagues come back to me and say, well, look, we have to follow procurement directives. We have to go out to tender in a structured way, and these are the procurement rules we have to follow. It has to be open, fair and transparent to all suppliers and give an opportunity. But is there a way that the process can be simplified so it's not such an arduous paperwork exercise to submit a tender?
From the procurement side of it, my colleagues in procurement are working very closely with us to make it more streamlined.
Yeah.
So say, for example, you know, if we've got a below 25,000, why are we saying you've got to have 10 million public liability insurance? What is the relevance? Or is it relevant to
that particular opportunity? Yeah.
Do you think there's any mileage around social value policies in terms of giving that flexibility to go local? So the carbon agenda, etc., the circular economy.
I think that is all, it is relevant now. And there was a time many years ago, I wasn't allowed to use the word local. Now it's come back to be local suppliers. So, you know, you talk to procurement colleagues, we're going out on this opportunity, Gitto, can you help to source or raise awareness of opportunities across your networks and so on. And we're looking to engage with as many local companies as we can.
I think the buyers have got as much responsibility in this, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, we do put out these contracts. Sometimes we do things because we've always done them that way.
Yeah.
We don't challenge enough as the purchasers. And sometimes the word, you know, you do have to tweak wording to ensure that you're supporting. And if going down the carbon route is the way you're doing that, then, you know, we should be taking responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'm in continuous dialogue. Doesn't matter if it's Carmarthen. I cover sort of mid, north and west Wales, so it doesn't matter if it's Pembrokeshire or up in North Wales. The same messages come across where suppliers, local companies are keen, but in the presentation that I make with the webinars, there's a slide there on barriers, and they're all the barriers. I don't have the ISOs. It's going to go to this repeat contractor again. What's the point? And so on. And what we're trying to do is to reason with the small companies and say, look, there are opportunities. There are threshold values. There are different value contracts that you can be going for, something a little bit more suitable for the size business you are, and trying to maybe develop that network with larger companies that encourages consortia bidding. We try and encourage companies to start looking at that model. It doesn't have to be complicated, you know, and try and encourage the smaller companies to maybe collaborate. And there are lots of success stories that I've worked with of people then, by collaboration, have secured, a place on a framework and are competing with the larger suppliers in the market. Okay, I'm glad that that's stimulated a little bit of conversation, and sort of it is challenging, and small companies, I emphasize so much to them when I speak to them, this is going to take a lot of time for you. You need to think more long term here. If you're really serious about contract work, this is the investment in time that you need to take as a company. This is the standard a buying organisation like a local authority is going to require. So it's working towards that. But as well, what I'm trying to do is to work with those smaller companies and for them to mention in their tender bid responses, it's a development plan. We are working towards getting all these standards in place as a small business. We can deliver the work, but we will work towards putting formal accreditations in place. And as long as buying organisations can see that commitment, then they will not sort of penalise a supplier from bidding for work.
Got a question, if you don't mind. I know there's an appetite, certainly with local authorities, to work with more local companies who would be bidding for work on South to Wales and other platforms. I was just wondering, have you seen a trend in more local companies coming forward for help and getting how to bid for
Yes. I'd confidently say that in the last 2 or 3 years, and I've seen it especially since I've been working from home. I'm speaking to small companies they're seeing opportunities, and there is an appetite there to try and to develop their knowledge and their skills and put them in a position to be able to bid for work, across public sector contracts, get on to that supply chain. And with larger projects as well, across the region, people are seeing the opportunity and wanting to prepare themselves to take advantage of those opportunities in the future.
And the success stories you mentioned, do you think promoting more of those success stories would sort of maybe give more confidence to more local companies come forward?
Yeah, we do publish as Business Wales sort of good news stories, profiles of small companies. If you go on South to Wales or the Business Wales website, you will see examples of companies who've, they'll tell you where their start point was, coming to a Meet the Buyer event, which has introduced them to speaking to a public sector buyer or a principal contractor, which has led to, and then you can see the journey, and then success stories of picking up the first small contract, which has then built the confidence and helped the company to grow. And then you're seeing that sort of next progression to maybe a larger contract and so on. So yes, we need to do more of that. Social media, yes, covers off a lot of things that we do and promotes a lot of the good news. But I really feel we could be doing a lot more as a collaboration of stakeholders as well. Just some practical things there on the ITT process. As ITTs are presented, tips really. Those are practical tips and support that I provide to the buying organisations. The appetite has been so strong in recent years that people are prepared to pay for somebody to write their responses for them. I've had I can guide that small company and handhold as much as I can through the Business Wales service, but contract work has become so valuable to maybe some small companies in some sectors. They need to get back onto that framework, or I've worked with Natural Resources Wales recently with some large frameworks, and getting back onto that large framework is guaranteeing that company then 5-6 years worth of work. So they are prepared to pay for services these days as well as developing sort of their in-house skills and knowledge. So, I always try to emphasise the tips and techniques really for effective preparation for bid writing and making sure that the clients that I support, are building a really good sort of template to prepare for successful bidding. This can be a nightmare for some companies. When you're going through the tender process, you will be required to show that you've got these various sort of accreditation policies and so on in place. Obviously there's the Welsh language measure, 2011 standards to be able to meet and so on. But lots of things, preparation you could be doing, and hopefully the reassurance I can provide the clients that I support is that we have developed template documents to make things as simple as possible and examples for clients to know where to start, from pen profiles, testimonials, what does a really good reference look like, highlighting some really key features of that delivery, cyber essentials, the data sort of handling and so on. Data is a requirement of the public sector, of buying organisations, business continuity planning and so on. These are all sort of elements that you will see questions in a tender. And yes, it does take time to understand and to then plan and develop your approach within your business. But I'm trying to also make sure that when I'm speaking to clients, to make sure that they are aware of the different range of contracts that are available and supply chain opportunities. They don't always have to be complicated, where you're going through really detailed bid proposals, but just being out there, getting your name mentioned can, in some cases, make the difference, and developing your network of contacts. This is just here to emphasise that we do, as part of the tendering strand delivery, try and make sure that suppliers are aware of the Wellbeing and Futures Generation Act. A lot of questions today in a bid response touch on the 7 connected goals and how you as a company can approach and achieve and contribute to some of those goals. This again can be quite daunting, but I do work with a range of different sectors, and a lot of sectors are quite familiar, and then developing their approach to how they can be contributing towards those 7 connected wellbeing goals. The 2 sort of main social value models, community benefits and the new national TOMs. What I'm trying to do as part of my work is to raise awareness of the process, the social value that you as a supplier can contribute to the successful delivery of that contract with the buyer, and what the buyer is trying to achieve and what you need to be contributing to as well. And then just practical things, how you could be adding value, trying to make sure that buying organisations and the suppliers understand, what they could be focusing on, what is your unique selling point, what are your benefits that you can sell through a bid response. And scoring matrix, a lot of companies I work with don't understand or don't realise how much evidence is required with every stage of that bid response. So when you're writing your response, you need to be, understanding what standards the buyers are looking for in the process, and evidence obviously is crucial. And then sort of standards, I've mentioned them slightly earlier, trying to make sure that smaller suppliers are not put off when they see ISO accreditations and various other qualifications mentioned, but to just raise awareness of smaller value sort of accreditations, SKUMAS, Picasso, Green Dragon. We in Business Wales have developed the Green Growth Pledge at the moment, which is helping companies to put those environmental sort of policy and process in place. And then what I'm trying to do is educate the buying organisations to make sure that they are aware of these pledges and that they can be used as evidence in tender submissions or quoting scenarios for the smaller companies. This is stopped. So I work across North, Mid and West Wales. Contact details there are for the Carmarthen address and our inquiries desk there. So hopefully that's given you a snapshot of what the tendering strand of Business Wales can provide, the type of companies I work with, what I'm actively trying to do to create opportunities. And I think today is really a good opportunity to be able to share, to network with you and to identify potential sort of opportunities moving forward. Has anybody got any questions?
I just wanted to say that lunch is served upstairs if you want to have some. So I've been advised to tell you it's already served.
Kill the questions now,
Yeah.
Sorry, after the questions, of course.
Yeah. Has that been helpful in developing, sort of hopefully developing your knowledge, prompting some questions, seeing a local authority perspective, public sector, and what we're trying to do, to create opportunity, develop skills and knowledge, develop and encourage those smaller companies, those smaller suppliers to believe. But I'm having those conversations all the time with buying organisations. Can the process be made simpler, please? Can these large frameworks be broken down into smaller packages to make it more attractive? For the very small companies, can there be, I know there's the supply chain or the subcontracting opportunities might work for some smaller companies, not for others, but it might be an opportunity to get onto the ladder on a public sector sort of project, work with maybe a larger principal contractor, which then, in my experience, has led to other projects for that particular supplier. Any feedback? Yes.
One thing that I think that is important for people to realise is that when I deal with the large framework, I'm talking about tier ones, working across international markets, a lot of them, but particularly working in the UK, the message that is lost sometimes in small businesses in Wales is there is no service like this in England. So that when they come to work in Wales, it's great that there is a public service there to help support SMEs, because there isn't anything like that when they go to England. So if they have queries and questions and the smaller businesses want to know how to tender it,
that is the one
service is here in Wales. And I think sometimes that message is a bit lost.
Yeah.
Some of the smaller SMEs, they just take for granted our business, well, whatever it is. But it puts them in a position of advantage when working with these large companies that their opposition in England don't have. I've spoken to a few companies from England, and I've talked about the Business Wales service. Not heard of anything like this before.
That's one of the most embarrassing conversations I have when I deliver webinars at the moment. Successfully developed a model with Carmarthenshire Council now, where we do the early engagement, we do the prep, and a live tender workshop then for that specific opportunity. When I host that live tender workshop, companies from across Mid and West Wales, then you get people from across the border, and I have to make that comment then at the start of that webinar. I'm afraid that the Business Wales service can only support you after this webinar today if you have a trading address in Wales, and that's when the English people turn around. Well, they've tried to come to me post the webinar, can you help me with this, that and the other? And I said, sorry, I can't support you because you haven't got a trading address in Wales. So So yes, and I'm offering all of this help then for those suppliers to help them to get their tender right and to get it in on time and to the standard required. So yeah, you know, trying to make sure through as much publicity as we can, through working constructively with buying organisations, and Carmarthenshire Council are really good at promoting Business Wales and making sure that suppliers know that there's help out there, and it's the same across other regions and across Wales. Well, I hope, yes, sir.
I mean, because I'm sort of NHS Wales.
All right, yes.
Do you work with NHS Wales to sort of encourage them to go forward?
I've done, yes, yeah. Recently, we've developed a really good relationship with the NHS Shared Partnership, and then that's broken down into all of the regions, and those regions are providing me with a pipeline of potential opportunities with the aim of trying to advertise and reach out to local suppliers. So we've been able to use our networks within Business Wales to inform local companies of smaller value opportunities. So that has really worked well in the last couple of years, yes.
So we find we sort of try and support small companies with innovation and all that, and then all of a sudden we hit the wall and, well, you have to go out for procurement now. And they give up.
Yeah, and your procurement colleagues tell you then how you have to go out to market, isn't it? Yeah.
And we have to sort of kick them into touch, but sort of have to take a step back.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
And it's, straight in there.
Okay. Have I reached my... Here we are. I think lunch is...
If everyone's happy across, then lunch is served upstairs when everyone's ready. Yeah.
Okay. Diolch yn fawr iawn. And I hope it's been valuable. Okay. Thank you very much. Diolch.